Hi, everyone. My name is Simone, and welcome to episode 7 of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast. All right. Hi, everybody. So let's go ahead and jump right into our opening segment. This week, we have a quote from the book Tales of Despero by Kate DiCamillo. And the quote goes, "Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning. Tell Gregory a story. Make some light." Let me know what you think of the quote in the comments below. I thought this was a beautiful quote. I really do love the way in which, for this particular quote at least, it compares stories to that of a resource as something necessary. Stories is hope in a place where hope, or at least light as it was described in the quote, is necessary. I think that could actually be a beautiful allegory to the human experience, which is leading us into our topic today. So today I want to talk about just how beautiful I think the human experience is, and how each and every person's life and everything that they're going to go through is kind of all like their own story, their own book. A fun fact about me, I really love to read. And growing up, my nose stayed in a book. Reading was like a home away from home for me, and I found myself indulging whenever I could. I'd read in the car, on the school bus, in class, in the hall. I even tried reading those like same books at church before I got caught and like eventually had to have like the books confiscated before service. but yeah, by the time I got into high school, I was reading almost like 2 novels a day, and I've loved reading ever since. I think it's what's contributed to my love for the human experience. Because if you think about it, or at least how I like to think about it, each and every person is their own individual story. And just like each and every story has their own lesson to go through, their own challenges and adventures, people are just like that. And then if you think about genres and you think about common writing tropes, you see that there are very similar experiences that happen across stories, that happen across genres, and I think people are the same. So like, sure, you might be 2 different stories in 2 different books, but you've had this very similar experience, and that's something that both of these stories share. Like, yes, there are a lot of challenges, a lot of hardship, a lot of blessings, even a lot of reasons to rejoice and reasons to celebrate that can occur and build towards your own individual story. And that can also be very, very similar to the story of someone else that's not like you at all. It's something I think that's really cool about being a person. A word I found online that captures this sentiment, well, is the word sonder. So the definition of sonder is the feeling one has on realizing that every other individual one sees has a life as full and as real as one's own, in which they are the central character and others, including oneself, have secondary or insignificant roles. Sonder is a word I found a while back, and it felt like I struck gold. It perfectly describes something I had always considered. Because even if you think about the episode last week when I was talking about the beauty of being a background character, this is also something I think of often. Like, yes, I am often in the state in which I am thinking about how everybody I see has their own individual full lives that, like, in that one moment that our paths may cross, I'm showing up as but another background character. I am but a detail in the pages of the book that is their life. Something else I also do is write. So I wrote even more while I was in high school than I do now, but a habit I've picked up every now and then is I think how I would describe what's going on around me in a book. So like, imagine you're stopping at a coffee shop and you sit down with your coffee. If it was me in that situation, I might decide to look around and see how I describe what's going on around me. Maybe I describe the couple that's cozied up in the corner, or maybe the college students studying, or maybe even the commotion happening behind the counter. It makes me wonder, how might I show up in other folks' stories? What do I look like just being a part of the atmosphere? I always think it's so cool to kind of like almost come out of oneself and to like imagine myself as being but a detail in the scene that is kind of happening around me. We're often a part of so many people's lives that way. And it's actually very cool to think about how all the ways in which people's lives overlap and exist in tandem. I also think it's really cool how everyone and everything has a story. They have a way of life that helps them or shows them how they navigate through their own life and how it is often unique to them. Even if sometimes they have like some really, really similar things happen to other people, like some of my favorite movies actually, since we're talking about stories, are these movies where they are told from multiple different perspectives. So, like for one example, it's The Handmaiden. It's a South Korean film by director Park Chan-wook, and the movie is broken into different perspectives and does a really good job of showing the entire picture of what is going on. And then there's another movie that does similar. It's called Eternal Sunshine on the Spotless Mind, and it stars Jim Carrey. The movie is also told in a couple of different perspectives. So you begin watching the movie one way, and then upon getting the perspective of another character, you get to see things in a totally different light. I always found those types of movies like really interesting because it's a lot like life. Oftentimes, we're experiencing so much of everything from one perspective, and getting that insight from someone else could prove to shed an entirely new light on things. Trying to understand more characters in film and movies is something I do often. I like knowing the why of their behaviors. So I'm always going to enjoy stories told from multiple perspectives. But yeah, I think the beauty of existing, the beauty of having your own story is that you're not the only one with the story. To piggyback a bit off of last week's episode, again, like the beauty of like even all those little details that kind of lead up to the creation of who we are and what makes our life is that very concept exists for everyone. And that's all I have for today's episode. The quote for the closeout piece today is by Suyasha Subedi, and it reads, "Every day is a movie, only if everybody's lives were captured on reel." End quote. And with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for being. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.